Hello, my name is Wesley Parker Reed. I am a third-year MDiv student here at the seminary at Azusa Pacific University, and I would like to tell you about how Judaism is uniquely influential to my Christian journey. So, I've had some very interesting experiences over the past several years with Judaism. My aunt is Jewish, I have several friends that I hang out with who are Jewish, and through these relationships and through my own personal journey in the church as a Christian, I've really come to value certain practices that I had never learned about before in my past. So I grew up in a Christian home and grew up in a particular denomination that didn't really focus hardly at all on the Old Testament. And so a lot of what we talked about came from the Pauline epistles in the New Testament, and also a secondary would be from the Gospels. But rarely ever would we hear solid teaching from the Old Testament, and rarely ever hear anything about the Jewish faith and how Judaism is actually the roots of Christianity as a whole. And so I became so fascinated with where we, Christ followers, came from in our traditions and in our cultures, which is the Jewish faith, and I began to study this on my own. So I started to read through the Old Testament over and over when I would do my scripture readings, and then I began to study Jewish tradition, Jewish culture, and so what really all happened is a lot of this began to culminate, and I got to go to Israel this past summer, where I had an incredible experience. So I had always been fascinated with the head covering that men and women of the Jewish faith wore, which is known as a kippah. And I became more comfortable with the kippah when I understood what it actually was for. It was a sign of holiness before God. It was something that all people could do, and that actually is required in certain situations in worship within the Jewish faith. And so when I went to Israel with a group of Christians here at our university, I went and I had these incredible experiences, and I knew that I wanted to buy my own kippah so that I could wear it when we went to the Western Wall. We were actually told by our Jewish tour guide that we would need to wear a kippah in order to walk up to the wall. And as we were entering the area where the Western Wall is in the old city of Jerusalem, all of us in my entire team were just overwhelmed by how tangible the presence of God was there. And we all began to get our kippahs and cover our heads. And it's such a powerful experience there that we really got to share as a group. And then later on, I came back here, and of course I continued my studies and my readings and whatnot, and I actually told some of my Jewish friends about my experience in Israel, and then they actually invited me to come to the Pasadena Jewish Temple with them to worship God on Rosh Hashanah. And so I showed up there ready to go, wearing my kippah. And their face just lit up with excitement when they saw me already wearing it on my head. And so it was just a really neat way to connect with them on a deeper level, because we had a conversation later and they just shared with me how much they valued the fact that I respect where they're coming from, and that I intentionally asked them questions about how they understand the world and what their theologies are, what their practices are, and where it comes from. Sometimes I'll just wear my kippah if it's a particular Jewish holiday, or even if I'm in my own room praying, I'll put it on, not necessarily because I think I'm Jewish, but because as someone who does have faith in God through Jesus Christ, I value the holiness of God, and I value God in worship. And so there are moments where I'll put it on, and it will connect me with something so much greater than just my tradition, but a tradition of people who have been worshiping God for years and years and years before the Christian tradition and movement even began.